This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Good Times.
A traditional Son-et-Lumiere, or sound and light show, involves recorded sound and lighting. But considering the technology today, it's become possible to make it a total and all-encompassing art form, like creating a film which involves scripting, photography, specially composed music, a director's chair, anything you can think of really to make it a complete sensory experience.
जरा मेन्यू डालियो।
Believe it or not, even though I grew up in New Delhi, I've never seen a sound and light show. And today I'm traveling with Veenu Pasricha all the way to Chandigarh to see his latest creation and experience my first ever sound and light show.
The Chandigarh Sound and Light Show is talking about the history of Chandigarh, how it was conceived, planned and built and then peopled by the public who came in and settled down. And it's for the general public to know about how this happened.
Would you say that this is a big show in terms of what went into creating it?
Yes, it took nearly a year to put this whole show together.
Wow.
It's a team of about 30-40 people who worked on it, right from script writers, production controllers, graphic artists, photographers, cameramen, actors, the crew, everything. And we planned the whole thing for almost 6 or 8 months before we finally went into production.
And how expensive is something like this?
The entire project is upwards of 1.5 crores.
1.5 crores?
That's right.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but this is your specialization, isn't it?
Yes. Sound and light shows is something that I've perfected over the last 10 years.
Right.
And it's something very nice to do a show which you can leave behind permanently to run for the next 10 to 20 years and be seen by the public every day.
On Picture Perfect, I had the pleasure of meeting your father, Avinash Pasricha, and your brother, Amit Pasricha, both of whom are photographers, as was your grandfather.
That's right.
Coming from a family of photographers, how did you end up doing what you're doing?
I actually started off to try and become an engineer, and I went and joined IIT Delhi. I bumped into the career of AV making, audiovisual making. I made an AV for the 25 years of IIT Delhi. And that's how I found this profession, and I spent, in fact, my last semester hanging around at a studio which used to make AVs and learning all there was to know about it. So I call myself a technocrat.
Technocrat.
Technical and creative.
Well, I can't wait to see the Sound and Light Show, and it's at the museum, right?
It's at the museum, yes.
It's taken us 6 hours to get here, and I cannot believe my luck. It's raining, but I came to Chandigarh to see a sound and light show, and I refuse to leave without seeing one. So as soon as the rain lets up, Veenu has promised me a private screening.
All good stories begin with once upon a time, and so should this one. The story of Chandigarh. They call me Sukhna Lake.
Trust you to take all the credit, Sukhna. But may I remind everyone that Chandigarh was actually named after me?
The man whose name became indelibly linked with the creation of Chandigarh was Charles Edouard Jeanneret, better known by his adopted name, Le Corbusier. science and technology have transformed the city in many ways. Yet, our values remain eternal. Pride in our city, civic-mindedness, sensitivity to the environment, and the desire to leave the city even better for the generations to come. Chandigarh, the Garden City. Chandigarh, the Eternal City.
Bravo! Thank you. Thank you, Veenu, for this fabulous private screening.
You're most welcome.
Veenu's installation in Chandigarh was pre-programmed onto a computer and required the press of one button. But the stakes are a little different while conducting a live audiovisual show. Nevertheless, it is something that is very much a part of his repertoire.
ऊपर ले जाओगे फिर नीचे लाओगे बांधने के लिए हो जाएगा. You won't have that option.
You know, it's interesting, but you do some shows for your body, which is to earn your bread and butter, and that's mostly all the corporate shows that I do, launches or events or things like that.
Go to some color images.
There are some shows that you do for immortality, which is the sound and light shows. Those are the ones which are permanent installations. They get left off for the next 10, 15, 20 years, and hopefully your name gets remembered during that period of time. And there's some shows that you do for the soul, where the money doesn't matter, anything else doesn't matter, but it's your own creative energy, it's your own creative freedom that comes to the fore, and you do it just for the pure sake. This show is one of them. It's for the soul.
Right now we are working on a production called The Game of Dice. It's a dance drama. It's different in as much that it has this audio-visual, you know, playing sort of, well, it's not the Sutradhar, but it's the backdrop for the dance drama.
It's a story from the Mahabharata, the very famous story, of course, of Yudhishthir and Shakuni playing the game of dice. And the Draupadi bit is in there also. And then finally leading on to the revenge or the avenging by Bhim of the honor of Draupadi. Here the show is all about using mediums, using different mediums to convey a message. And the medium of the dance, of how the dancers depict the story, and the juxtaposition with the visual, creating an environment, a surrounding which makes them live it.
When I started to choreograph this production, I feel I can bring this Mahabharata a slightly be more innovative way to the present generation, where they enjoy both the old people as well as the modern people, the young generation. Lights first wing mein hai kya?
We have to talk something. Once we storyboarded in rough concept and discussed it thoroughly with Santosh, we then went about trying to get all the visuals together, which is a lot of photography that went in, of the dancers, of the costumes, of the masks. We shot in all sorts of possible ways, and then spent a huge amount of time on the computers in Photoshop, just creating all the visual effects, creating Shakuni's diabolical mind and his convoluted thinking.
After which we got the visuals, and then we composited them, we visualized the show and put them together to, to actually form the audiovisual, the actual AV. Then that was programmed to the actual track.
A good 2 months of it, in fact, was actually spent just ideating. Just talking, just conversing, just watching the rehearsals, watching the dancers, understanding the movements, understanding what's happening on the stage to see what could be done on the screen. When I presented my ideas to Santosh in terms of what I could do with the screen, he looked at those ideas and then adapted his dance. I looked at the dance, adapted my visuals. It was, again, it was a constant back and forth that kept happening and to result in this.
Well, as we walk into the hall in the morning, which is many hours before the show, we have many things that happen simultaneously. We have the screen that's going up, we have a projector that's being focused and being strapped up to its bar, going up, being aligned. We have the computer being set up, the lights being set up, the lights being tested, the sound levels being tested. So we have like a gazillion things happening simultaneously. The projector will stop projecting, my computer will stop running, the sound will go off, and you know, major glitches like that. They have happened, they do happen, but we've got our fingers crossed and toes crossed so that they don't. But yeah, you have butterflies before the show. Even if I was to do the same show, I think every day we have the same feeling.
Stay thy sinful deed, Dushasan. Nameless wrongs and insults spare. Touch me not with hands uncleanly.
There's always a period of adjustment. The first 10 minutes or so, I think the audience sort of tries to grapple with the situation and gradually adjusts itself. And I think by the end of the 10 minutes, they are quite used to what's happening. It's then they forget that there's two different mediums because it's so powerfully linked to each other.
Silent all? And will no chieftain rise to save a woman's life?
The presentation of the silver trumpet and banner by the President of India to his bodyguard is a very prestigious and historic ceremony that takes place every 5 years at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. It is also a ceremony for which Veenu Pasricha has had the honor of creating a sound and light show more than once. Now, I didn't get to see the real thing, but I did see a reproduction in his basement.
I saw the show in 1988. I was in the audience. And as I looked at the show, I thought that the potential was just enormous. This here was this grand ceremony. And I looked at myself and I, in fact, talked to my boss who was sitting with me next to me at that point in time. And I said, next time that this happens, 5 years from now, we will do it. We will, and we got the project.
And how many times have you done it since?
Every time that it has happened since. So 1993, then 5 years later, 1998, then 5 years later, 7 years later in 2005. And 2006, there was a repeat show that President Kalam asked for. And we're hoping that we get to do it next year now in 2008 as well.
How do you begin work on a project like this, of this scale and magnitude especially? And how different is your installation to what used to be done? It's completely different.
Now, yes, as of the last show that we did, it's very, very different. The main flow remains the same because after all the history of 230 years of the President's Bodyguard, you can't change very much. What we've done in terms of the coordination, the perfection of the show, the add-ons that have happened in terms of lighting and projection, the large format projection, they've done wonders to how the show appears or looks as far as the audience
So
is
you
concerned.
started with a script?
Yes, yes. A script is the starting point, which is visualized to a T to work out exactly what will go in where. And this has to be visualized also from the point of view that that we have to pre-work out which are the live sequences. This is after all a show that incorporates in images on the screen, images being projected on the facade of the Rashtrapati Bhavan at times. It has got live action, which is the movement of the armored cars or the horses or the training sequences happening in this large quadrangle of the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. And it's also got some amount of lighting also, which is coordinated with this whole thing.
How long did you rehearse it?
Well, the horses rehearse for about a month at least.
Okay.
But with the equipment, we do about 5 days of rehearsal before we go on for the show.
Now, what aspect of it do you handle personally? The creative, the technical?
I direct it.
You direct it?
I direct, I mean, it's not a film direction, so I would call myself a show director. Then on the final day, I'm there standing on the stands with the walkie-talkie, with the headphones that gives me communication with all the team.
Right.
It's the problem is about 5 minutes before the show starts. That's the time when your stomach is just about ready to give way and you're just a bundle of nerves.
So you have 3 projectors here in the studio,
Yes.
but at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, how many projectors did you have?
Well, there were 3 projectors there also. These are fairly bright projectors, and we required 3 to create the large panoramic seamless image that we
Yes,
wanted.
how do you create such a seamless image? It's one seamless image. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like they're 3
Yes,
separate
yes.
images.
Yes. Well, it's a combination of specialized hardware and software, which does what's called soft edge blending.
Soft edge
Blending, yeah. So an image fades out into the next image gradually,
Right.
and that's how you create a seamless image. Oh, this is a beautiful. Look at that. Have you ever seen horses lying around? And
No!
you have to see that.
That was lovely. Wow. Was it hard to light a building as huge as the Rashtrapati Bhavan?
I mean, like the moment we said, okay, we will light the pillars of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So how many pillars do we have? We have 130 pillars. So 2 lights per pillars, that's 260 lights that have to be placed just to light up the pillars.
So the technology that you use, is it at par with the technology that is used internationally?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. I mean, something that would go in to do magnificent spectacles abroad. This is exactly the kind of stuff that we were using here.
Yeah.
And it was designed to suit this particular location. And the location, I might add, is just spectacular in itself. It's the most magnificent arena you could find.
What struck me about Veenu was how calm he was the entire time. It did take us 7 hours to get to Chandigarh, and it was pouring when we got there, but he was nothing but helpful. And what's great about interviewing people from the world of photography or film is that they always seem to understand what it takes or what goes into making a show. And mostly people are quite accommodating. It's nice. The realization that I had while trying to understand how Veenu puts his ideas into practice was that knowledge of subjects like physics, mathematics, engineering can really free you to exploit your creative potential. I mean, so often in school one says, how is that going to help? Now I know. And if you want to know more about our show, you can visit our website and read my blog and tell me what you think.